Good morning, everyone, and welcome into Wake and Take. It's your boy Jason, and we have some football to talk about today. I'm joined by a very special guest, Chase Vernon. He's making his third appearance on the Wake and Take. He's returned to the Roto Underworld doing the big tilt, which we'll talk about in a bit. He's giving us some DFS advice, breaking down Thursday Night Football, and helping me break down some of the news that went down yesterday. So why don't we sit back? Why don't we relax? Why don't we sip our coffee and enjoy the show? Good morning, Chase. How's it going, man?
What's up, man? How we doing today? How we doing?
Doing all right. I'm excited to have you back on. It's always a great time when you're with me, and I know you've got some fantastic Thursday Night Football advice for the audience. However, we're not going to talk about Thursday Night Football yet. We have some news to cover, and we're going to start things off with the preseason Nickelodeon's most valuable player, Deuce Vaughn, has come home with the blimpie. Congratulations to Mr. Vaughn. Do you have any expectations for him this season?
Hopefully he grows a little bit, gets a little bit taller for what we're hoping. He's about the same size as half the kids that voted for him, so
That's a good one. Half the size of half the kids that voted for him. Congratulations to you, Deuce Vaughn. I hope we can see you on the football field for more than a few games and you can stay healthy with that frame. You did look good. You did look good this preseason. And speaking of health, Cooper Kupp is officially out for week 1 with this hamstring injury. It seems to be a little bit worse than just a hamstring injury. He went to Minnesota this weekend to meet with a specialist. Nothing came out about what that specialist said. He was still with them on Monday, last I checked. So 3 days with this specialist in a whole nother state. That was concerning to me. However, to me, and I'm curious your take, when I see him ruled out for week 1, I feel a little bit more confident drafting him because I feel like that means the Rams are taking their time and actually letting him get up to full health before throwing him out there. But how are you reading into this?
We've seen Cooper Kupp deal with injuries his entire career. Yeah. Like, this is not something new. Whether it's a nagging injury, that keeps him out for, a couple games, a couple plays, whatever it is. We've just seen him have these injuries from time to time. So it makes me a little bit nervous, right? It makes me a little bit nervous for Cooper Kupp that he is taking so long to get back. But this is something where, hell, we might not even see him, till week 4, week 6, maybe even week 8. So if you draft him, that's unfortunate, but he should be back for the playoffs, which is really what you want. The Rams as a whole seem like a team that's ready to just rebuild. So, I don't know how long Cooper Kupp is going to remain with this team. Matthew Stafford's going to remain with this team. But it really makes no sense if they go, if they're sitting there week 8 and they only have a couple wins on the season to rush Cooper Kupp back at that point. So it definitely makes me nervous.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if he'll be out that long, but we'll see. As we know now, Sean McVay was asked if the IR is a possibility for Cooper Kupp, and he didn't dismiss it. He didn't say, no, he's not going on the IR. He didn't say he was going on the IR either. But still, the fact that that's still on the table is definitely concerning. I saw something this morning from Adam Schefter that it might actually be some nerve damage in his hamstring, which is I don't really know what that means for the longevity of a playing career. Really, I imagine it's like any other injury where it's just about pain management. But really, who knows? I'm not a doctor. I still think though that at the value you're getting him right now, especially if you're a win now dynasty team, he could be a buy for what he can give you at the end of the year at his price right now. I don't know. What are you thinking?
Well, first off, you said you're not a doctor, but I thought if you have a Twitter account, you're automatically qualified to become a doctor, right? Isn't that the rule on Twitter? Hey, you got a Twitter account, you're now a doctor. You can tell everybody what you think. But no, if you're somebody that has a Cooper Kupp on your roster and you want to try and move him, I honestly would be cool with like a early 2nd round pick or something. And I know that's a little bit like a hottish take, but it's tough. Like if you look at like the Todd Gurley situation, how quick his value deteriorated, or anybody when it comes to that aspect, Cooper Kupp might be at his highest point right now, even though he's injured, because we don't know how long he's going to be sitting out for. There could still be a team that has hope, right? that has hope that he could come back within a couple weeks and be good to go throughout the rest of the season. But like I said, he's never been healthy outside of that one year. So
yeah,
I'm cool with moving him.
Okay, cool. I'm on the buy side. I think you're on the move side. I think either one is fair. It really just comes down to what kind of return you're getting or how much he costs. Before we move on, let me ask you this question. Is it Tyler Higbee's season, or is there a Rams wide receiver that you're getting excited for?
No, just no. I mean, Tyler Higbee had one of the best 4-game stretches in history of fantasy football, right?
Yep.
That 4-game stretch was absolutely insane in terms of output. But outside of that, he's gave you mediocre output, like maybe I think it's like 4.2 fantasy points per game throughout his career outside of that stretch. I'm not really interested in any of them, but if somebody's going to be on the field, it's going to be Van Jefferson throughout the entire season. We all know Tutu Atwell deals with health issues. We know that Puka Nacua is a 5th-round pick, right? So he get replaced as soon as Cooper Kupp comes back, or he get replaced by a free agent. Meanwhile, Van Jefferson has been running the same routes, been doing the same thing since he came in. Maybe they add a little bit to his route tree and to his repertoire, which could actually increase the value. So if there's anybody on this team, I would take Van Jefferson.
Okay. I think that's totally fair. If there's a wide receiver, it's Van Jefferson for me. I am curious to see the Puka Nacua Ben Skowronek battle. I know that Nacua has gotten a ton of hype. I'm not really there yet. I want to see some stuff. It's a very random hype train for me, I believe.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, Van Jefferson, he's already been announced as the number 1 wide receiver with Cooper Kupp out. He had a couple good games with Baker Mayfield that last year. And I mean, he rocked some nice jewelry while playing. He has a chain while playing, and you can't discount that. That adds like 5 points a week to get to your upside. So Van Jefferson is somebody that Chase is targeting.
I will say Cam Akers too. Cam Akers is the big winner in all this because he's going to start to see some dump off targets. He's going to see more rushing opportunities as long as he can stay healthy. I love Cam Akers. I have a lot of shares of Cam Akers moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, you can rarely get a bell cow at the price you're getting Cam Akers for right now. And at one point, he was touted as a top 5 dynasty running back heading into last season, recovering from that Achilles and everything. So I like myself some Cam Akers. I really do. Let's move on to some other news, and that is that Josh Dobbs has been announced as the starting quarterback for the Cardinals. Just kind of give me your overall opinion on this situation, maybe the Cardinals in general, maybe Kyler, whatever you want to say.
Wasn't Josh Dobbs previously with this offensive coordinator? I believe he was.
Yeah, that was why they brought him in.
Yeah, so, I mean, he knows the system, right? He knows how to operate it.
Yeah.
I think that they're going to do a lot of quick passing opportunities, essentially. I think we're going to see a lot of that, from Marquise Brown, from, of course, Rondale Moore. When it comes to getting guys in this offense, I want the cheapest possible option that still could be relevant, which is almost a tie right now between Rondale Moore and McBride. So even Zach Ertz. I mean, if I'm going to get a share in this offense, it's probably going to be one of those guys. But this is going to be an ugly season for the NFC West. I mean, they were once one of the most dominant divisions in the NFL. And now we're looking at them as probably the lowliest division in the NFL coming up. So a lot of these games, you're going to come to like the Seahawks, right? It could be a blowout up against Arizona. It could be a blowout up against, the Rams. We're looking at opportunities for Kenneth Walker, right? And Zach Charbonnet to get some work in. It's a situation where I don't really know that I want pieces of the Cardinals offense whatsoever. But if I'm going to take one, it's going to be one of the cheaper ones. And I still don't hate Marquise Brown. If you can get him at a value, that's great. If he's fallen to you in drafts, 10 spots in the ADP, rounds in the ADP, go ahead, take him. Like he's not going to be bad, but he's already dealing with a hamstring injury, and we just don't know how Dobbs is going to be able to operate this offense. He had one good game, I believe, with the Titans. Was it or the Browns?
Yeah, it was a decent game.
It was the Titans, right?
Yeah, it was a decent game. I want to say he pushed 200 yards, didn't quite get there, but was close, and I don't think there was an interception or anything. So it was a fine game. It's definitely there, and I mean he was a rocket scientist at Tennessee, so there's something there. There's something there. A smart guy, at least. I'll say in terms of the Cardinals player I've been rostering, I have been kind of getting a decent bit of James Conner, not necessarily because I want to, but because he's just kind of ended up on my squad. And I have been pairing him with some Keontae Ingram. I do think that is a really good handcuff for this season.
Keontae Ingram is probably one of my most owned best ball targets in the last round, just because he's like James Conner, once again, similar to Cooper Kupp, he can't stay healthy. Like we can end up seeing Keontae Ingram with a significant snap share, significant workload if something happens to James Conner. And even if it doesn't, James Conner, he can't be playing 90% of the snaps when they're running the ball 60% of the time, right? Which is what I feel like is going to have to happen. And if they are passing, he's probably going to be involved in the passing game as well, which is great for James Conner. I'm all on board with James Conner.
Awesome.
But Keontae Ingram is somebody that I think needs to be on the back end of your rosters, going into the first few weeks of the season. I think that he needs to be rostered.
I agree. I think that the handcuff running back market in general is so strange to me, especially how it develops over the offseason, because you see players like Elijah Mitchell, you see players like Jerome Ford get steamed up so much. But then you look at some of the free handcuffs like Joshua Kelly behind an Austin
I love
Eckler,
Joshua Kelly.
Right? You've got Keontae Ingram behind James Conner that we just talked about. Maybe like Sean Tucker could turn into something. I don't know, but there are so many cheap and free handcuff running backs that I'm not really taking a chance on the ones that you have to pay up for. I don't see a point in doing that. So that was a good little discussion that we didn't even plan. That was not on the show sheet, but I appreciate the handcuff market talk. Before we get into Thursday Night Football, I want you to bring us some of your hot takes. And this week, I gave my biggest bust by position, my biggest value by position, and who I believe will finish number one overall at their position. Now it's time for you to answer those questions. Aside from the number one overall, I want you to give me your biggest bust and your biggest value. We'll start with your bust.
I mean, there are so many guys that I think could end up busting this year that I just don't understand, the values where they're going at. Jahan Dotson, I love Jahan Dotson. I think he's going to be very good, but we talked about him before the show, and he's now going ahead of Terry McLaurin in some drafts. And honestly, like he just doesn't have a sustainable touchdown rate from last year. That's what his main fantasy value was put on. What do we say? 61 targets rate, 7 touchdowns. That's absolutely absurd. I like Jahan Dotson. I think that he should be drafted, but at his value right now, he's just getting too high. But the big bust for me is Najee Harris. Okay. The dude behind a subpar offensive line over there for the Steelers with an offense that they say they want to increase the passing workload. Defense, hopefully it gets back to form with TJ Watt coming back, but it still is spotty and questionable at some aspects throughout the Steelers defense in an offense or in a division that has insanely heavy scoring offenses that they have to face. Najee Harris is somebody that was involved in the passing game in his rookie year, not so much in his sophomore year. Meanwhile, Jaylen Warren is taking snaps. He looks like the more electric running back. It could be a situation that we saw with Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard, where Warren is clearly a better back than Najee, but the draft capital keeps Najee on the field in inefficient situations. I am not drafting Najee Harris. I have 0 shares of him across almost 300 best ball leagues. I do not want anything to do with Najee Harris.
That is so funny. We are on complete opposite sides of the spectrum on Najee Harris. I actually picked Najee Harris as my surprise number one overall finisher for the running back position. I like the cost for him right now, and I do envision the Steelers offense running through him as Mike Tomlin has historically used a heavy bell cow running back. I think Jaylen Warren sniffed the field a lot last year because of Najee Harris's Lisfranc injury that he played through, still had 10 touchdowns, still had over 1,000 yards, still had a top 10 opportunity share with one of the worst injuries you can have as a running back. So I think that now that he's fully healthy, Jaylen Warren will see the field a little bit less, and Najee Harris will see more volume and be a bit more productive than he was last season. But, I mean, that Jaylen Warren hype is definitely getting a little concerning. It's building a little too fast.
I will say we had a comment over here in the chat. By the way, what's up, Jamie? We had a comment in the chat from MLAD saying the Steelers replace half the offensive line. Come on, dude. The Steelers replace half the offensive line. They have a 4th rounder at left tackle with Dan Moore. They have an undrafted free agent with Suamalo over there from Philly. They've got Mason Cole over there from Minnesota, James Daniels, undrafted free agent from Chicago, and then a 3rd rounder at right tackle with Okorafor, excuse me. Mm-hmm. I am so far off this. 3 undrafted free agents, a 4th rounder, and a 3rd rounder is their offensive line. And like we said, they brought him in. It's a new offensive line. They've got to get, adjusted and fixed together. And trust me, as a Commanders fan growing up, right, having a consistent offensive line that is there from year to year is so critical to the chemistry of the offense. And right now they don't have that. Could Broderick Jones take over at some point? Sure. They also have a 7th rounder that could take over at left guard. But as of right now, their starting offensive line is not impressive.
Yeah, I mean, that's a concerning offensive line. To me, that sounds like lots of dump offs to Najee Harris because Kenny Pickett's going to have no time. But that's just the homer in me. Next up, let's hear your biggest value for 2023.
So I have a couple of them. We talked about, before the show, our boy Desmond Ridder. And I just don't understand how Desmond Ridder could fail, essentially. They've now surrounded him with Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, right? All these guys are getting drafted in the top 50 picks for the most part. You might see Kyle Pitts fall out of that from time to time. But how do we expect all these players to be successful, right, if Desmond Ridder's bad, right? Like, there's no way that Desmond Ridder could be subpar, especially with his rushing ability, if we're going to watch all these 3 guys be successful. Bijan Robinson is going to have to be involved in the receiving game. We're going to see Drake London, top 1,000 yards, Kyle Pitts, top at least 800 yards minimum. Meanwhile, he still has Mac Hollins, a few other guys on that offense, and like I said, the rushing ability. I just don't see how he can fail. And right now, he's going off the board as like a bottom 5 quarterback. It just doesn't make much sense to me. And they're in a terrible division too. So
no, yeah, he was literally my biggest value yesterday at the quarterback position. I am all in on really the Falcons in general. But I mean, Desmond Ridder's a big part of that. He fits the scheme so well. And we talked about it a little bit. This offense is going to flow well as well. The defenses are just not going to have enough answers for everything that's going on in a single play with that offense. And so Desmond Ridder is going to be a consistent option. I mean, he just will. And if he's not, then that means you're going to be able to get Taylor Heineke for free, who has the same exact principle. It costs nothing to take the risk that Desmond Ridder has, although he's a better profile than Marcus Mariota, a better quarterback than Marcus Mariota. And Marcus Mariota still averaged over 16 points per game last year on the Falcons offense. So again, just go get Desmond Ridder. It is so simple. It is so easy. So thank you for giving me your value and your bust. Let's go ahead and hear from our sponsor over at Rival Fantasy, and then we'll do a Thursday night preview.
Hey, we've got to talk about Rival Fantasy today. Rival Fantasy, they're a huge supporter of everything we do, the podcast channel, the YouTube channel. It's possible because of Rival, and they have an incredible new offer with promo code PLAYER. Promo code PLAYER, you double your deposit up to $200, and you get $25 in bonus bucks. So it's $225 additional to play in NFL preseason. You can do their props on the fantasy book where it's over, under, up to 5 guys. The more over-unders you hit, the higher your payout. And they have their challenges for the community. You can say, hey, I think that player X is going to go over this many fantasy points, and someone takes you up on it. They take the other side. It's great. I love their fantasy bingo, where you can do 5 across, you can do 4 in the corner, black it out, just predicting fantasy points on your favorite players, especially in preseason. The promo code is PLAYER, where they match your deposit up to $200 plus those $25 in bonus bucks. This offer is insane.
That offer is insane. Go check out Rival Fantasy. We just did a whole bunch of listener leagues hosted on the Rival Fantasy season platform. It's a good little platform for really all of your fantasy football needs and your other sports. So go check that out. Chase,
what's up? It's back, baby.
Football is back. We're excited. And you host a show about daily fantasy, don't you?
I do. I sure do, man.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about it. Have you heard of it? It's called The Big Tilt.
I haven't. Please enlighten me.
It's on Friday nights, right? It's on Friday nights. So you have plenty of time to set your lineups for Sunday, right? And we talk about all things under the sun. If you guys check in over there, Player Profiler's YouTube channel, of course, you guys can go check it out at 7 o'clock Eastern time. We cover everything from start to finish. Last year, I did it with Jacob Sanderson, and we crushed it. We had so many different lineups that actually made us money. It was fun walking away with some extra cash at the end of the season. We also used the DFS optimizer to make sure that we're getting in all those different lineups. You guys can go check that out over there at playerprofiler.com. But yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm ready to rock and roll for this year, and I'm excited to kick it off tonight with Thursday night's game.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I love tuning into the Big Tilt. It helps me set my DFS lineups because I'm really no expert. I try my best, but there's so many players out there, and you guys do a great job highlighting who can break out. Now, you said your shows are on Friday nights, but I'm sure you still have some advice for tonight's game.
Yeah, I sure do. I actually put together a little package just for you, Jason, and of course, all of you at home watching this show. And I'm excited to dive in to Wake and Take's Thursday night preview with y'all. You ready?
Yes. Let's do it.
All right, we got a little bit of a weird situation, right? Because this should be a very high-scoring game. Obviously, without Chris Jones over there playing to disrupt this offensive line, it's going to be a barn burner, in my opinion. And with barn burners, you typically, for the showdown matchups, you got to hit that 100-point threshold, preferably get up to 110, maybe even 120 points. It doesn't happen often, right? Especially with different offenses. The Chiefs, right, isn't a consolidated target share with Travis Kelce being out. Even if he does play, we don't know what his snap count's going to be, how limited he's going to be, or if he's going to be heavily involved. So we have to figure out exactly what type of systems, we can approach to try and get to that threshold of 100 points, 110 points, 120 points. Typically, you do it by rationing off sections of how you're going to get there. So, for example, I have 3 different ways to get to that threshold. The first one is going to be somewhat of an even game, right? We're going to see both sides scoring points. You're going to need your captain spot to get 35 points. You're going to need 2 20-point scores, 15-point score, 2 10s. This is typically how you're going to get there with that pricing for the guys that are in these lineups this week. That's not always the case. For example, if we saw like a Bengals-Chiefs game for week 17, for example, you're going to see a lot more consolidated targets to Jamar Chase and to T. Higgins. So we're going to see probably more of a 40-point, 25, 25, and then a few fives mixed in there with the pricing. So we need a 35-point score, 20-point score, 20-point score, 15, 10, and 10. The other way, right, is if the Chiefs end up blowing the Lions out of the water, it's not even a close matchup. We're going to need a 40-point score, a 20-20, a 15, a 10, and a 5. If we get a Lions win, right, and the Lions end up blowing them out of the water, we're going to need a 30-point score, a 25-point score, a 20-point score, a 15, a 10, and a 10. So the way that we do this is by breaking down which guys can actually get you there and how you actually want to construct these rosters. With that being said,
before you go into the lineups, I want to ask, is this how you tackle all your showdown modes? You make one for a close game and then one for each potential blowout?
It depends. So,
okay.
Let's just say that we have a run-heavy team, right? Let's just say that the Falcons aren't as high scoring by week 8, and Bijan Robinson is the entire offense, and he's putting up 30 points a game. With the cost at his effect, right? It ends up you want to try and get a times and a half multiplier, 2.5 times multiplier from your primary players, based off of the scoring that they get you. So I try to build the scenarios for the different games because you want game script. You want to build it almost under a story mode for the captain's games. You want everything to correlate, essentially.
Definitely.
So if you have a game where somebody's getting blown out, right, you think they're going to throw Eagles versus Cardinals week 17, right? And you think that Jalen Hurts is going to end up blowing them out of the water early. You're going to end up stacking Jalen Hurts with A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith. You don't want to do both because if you do both, then that insinuates that the Cardinals are going to be able to keep up with them and that Jalen Hurts is going to be able to continue to pass. If you end up going with Jalen Hurts and one of these receivers, and then you end up pairing him with a Rashad Penny, right, for the fourth quarter blowout where he's going to see 15 carries in the fourth quarter alone, possibly 2 touchdowns, then that insinuates an Eagles blowout. So then you go off the pricing for that and the points based on that. Meanwhile, you have to have something to run it back, right? Because if the Eagles are blowing them out, you have to roll with the Cardinals, one of the wide receivers, right, to at least see volume because they're getting targeted so constantly. So that's one way to build it. It just really depends on the game script of the game itself. And I think that this could end up in 3 different ways. All 3 are going to be high scoring, but the Lions are either going to take control and win by X amount of points. We're going to have the Chiefs win by X amount of points, or it's going to be a close game, going to come down to a field goal, essentially, but it's still going to be high scoring. So back to it. I think that there are 3 guys in the captain spot that can get you up to 40 points. Okay. All right. We're talking about Mahomes, Goff, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Traditionally, over the past several years, the lead wide receiver has actually only scored 3 points less than the top quarterback in the captain spot. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, for me, is the only guy that can get you to that 40-point matchup, but he can do it very easily. He's also a little bit cheaper. I think he's actually more expensive than Goff, but he's cheaper than Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is expensive this week.
And it's full PPR for DraftKings, right? So I like that a lot.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you have the 35-point threshold. I don't think there's anybody that can get you up to that 35-point threshold in the captain spot outside of Mahomes, Goff, and Amon-Ra. I do think that Gibbs can get you that 30-point threshold, right? So now we have those options of who we want to build around with that captain spot in play. But the thing is how are we going to get all these dudes into our lineups while still being able to afford playing the primary spots? So we have the non-captains spots, right? The guys that we're going to throw in. And we have Gibbs who can get you up to 25, Mahomes and Goff. All three can get you up to 25. Meanwhile, the 20s are going to be more like Monty can get you there and McKinnon can get you there. We've seen it happen time after time. Meanwhile, Sky Moore is more for me on he can hit you the 20 side, right? But I don't think that he's a guarantee to get you to that 20-point threshold. I think that he's going to be more of a 15-point threshold guy. We also have MVS that can get you there. We've seen Marvin Jones surprisingly do it from time to time. And I think Isaiah Pacheco can get you there as well. So now we have those tiered out guys. Last but not least, we have the 10-point threshold people. And these are the guys that we can typically find at values. And if they end up going off, great, but they are riskier plays. Sam Laporta is one of them. Justin Watson's one of them. And depending on if Kelsey plays or not, Noah Gray is the last guy. So now that we figured out who we want to actually attack, we need to figure out who we also want to avoid. And Kadarius Toney at his pricing is way, way, way too high. I love Kadarius Toney. All right. Kadarius Toney is one of my favorite players. I think that he's a great fantasy asset right now. And I think that he ends up playing and being a guy that can win you a league. But this week, I don't really see him taking more than a 35-40% snap share just because of his injuries and because they want to keep him healthy. At his pricing, right, it would insinuate his pricing right now is sitting at $7K. That would insinuate that he's going to be getting you at least about 20 points or so. I don't see that happening in terms of getting that volume, right, in order to get there, right? He'd have to have 2 touchdowns, 70 receiving yards, X amount of receptions, and it's not going to happen for me, right? So I want to avoid Kadarius Toney for week 1. I'm not going to be playing him in the captain spots. Meanwhile, I'm going to avoid both defenses because, like we said, we think it's going to be a barn burner. Jared Goff can throw some interceptions. So sure, if you want to go out there and you want to play the Chiefs as a shot, we can do that, but I'm not messing around with that. And the kickers are fine. If you want to roll out a kicker, in an occasional lineup, that's fine. But once again, I think it's going to be more of a shootout. I think they come away with maybe 1 field goal per guy because they're going to need to keep up with the scoring on each side. So let's go ahead and let's talk about how we're actually going to do the build, right? Because if you want to run out Patrick Mahomes in that spot, you're going to have to play some combination of Justin Watson, Noah Gray, if Travis Kelce doesn't play. And who is the other guy? Oh, Josh Reynolds, right? And Josh Reynolds is actually a value. Josh Reynolds, keep in mind, averaged 13.7 points per game over his first 5 games of the season last year. And one of those games he only put up 1.8 points. Meanwhile, he was giving you 15 points, 20 points. And at his cost, it's practically nothing. That's a huge deal. I'm going to have a lot of Josh Reynolds in these upcoming lineups just to make the pricing work. Meanwhile, we have Justin Watson, who's going to be cycling in. He's probably going to see a 40% snap share, but he's only at $200. Right? Like all he needs is 1 catch for, let's just say 20 yards. And that's a profit technically. Is that a guy that I want to put in every single lineup? No. But is he somebody that can absolutely explode? And if he gets you 3 catches for 30 yards and a touchdown, I mean, that's a league winner, right? That's going to make any lineup with Patrick Mahomes, almost any lineup with Patrick Mahomes work. But my favorite lineups is to go with either Jared Goff in the captain, because Jared Goff is actually cheaper than Amon-Ra St. Brown, or go with Amon-Ra St. Brown to get a little bit of variance. Now you have to build around what you think the game is going to happen. And of course, if you're going with Patrick Mahomes and you think it's going to be a blowout, you want to do that lineup where, hey, he gets you 40 points. That's great. You're going to play a lot of Sky Moore, right? You're going to play a lot of MVS. And that's going to happen in a lot of different lineups. You have to figure out ways to create variance in that. Well, the way to create variance in that is by essentially adding in Justin Watson as the third stacked guy and assume that the pass catchers aren't going to be as heavily involved. There's also another road where you can involve Isaiah Pacheco because a lot of people know that Jared McKinnon is the guy to stack, with that in the receiving game. But if they get up big and Patrick Mahomes throws for 4 touchdowns and they're beating the Lions by, let's say 14 points, right? it's going to be Isaiah Pacheco throughout the whole fourth quarter. We might see some Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I still think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire, by the way, is a play in some of these lineups. I think they can absolutely get you there. Let's not forget what happened this first few weeks of the season last year, and it's going to be so funny when Twitter explodes, right? When Twitter explodes, when CEH takes the first snap.
Dude, so I'm so ready for just football to be here, just for really all of those things. So many takes all off season. And then of course it's going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire getting a touchdown. Of course.
Yeah, exactly. So creating that variance by playing Pacheco in lineups with Patrick Mahomes is going to be great. But trying to find that variance, I think, is going to be key to this game, just because of how high scoring it is. So of course you want to play the Amon-Ra St. Browns. Of course you want to play the Patrick Mahomes. Of course you want to play Jared Goff. You want to stack McKinnon with that. You want to get in some Sky Moore. Justin Watson makes a lot of that happen, but you need to create variance. And I think that also, by the way, Noah Gray is going to be way overplayed if Travis Kelce is ruled out for this game.
Okay, so would you say then, if Travis Kelce is out, that you shouldn't do Noah Gray because that's going to be the chalk move, or just that it'll be fine? You've just got to make sure you have variances with some other players.
You have to make sure you have variance, but you're creating a lot of risk essentially by playing variance along with Noah Gray, because if Noah Gray doesn't go off, you're probably going to eliminate 40% of the field. I think he's going to see at least a 40% ownership, if not more. However, he's cheap, right? So if you eliminate that, that doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily win because of the more expensive guys. They played Noah Gray knowing that the outcome could be 2 for 20 yards or 2 for 40 yards, and all of a sudden, or I should say 4 for 40 yards, and all of a sudden that's actually a value at that point. So I'm not saying fade Noah Gray entirely, but I'm going to go a little bit against the field and say that I'll only play him in like 15% of lineups, maybe 10% of lineups, so that I do kind of leverage that aspect of the DFS lineup.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I appreciate that DFS talk. I think that's going to be fantastic. I'm going to go build my lineup right after this, and I think you have sold me on the Sun God as my captain. I think I'm going to go with him in this and see what I'll let you know who else I squeeze in there.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind, like Clyde Edwards-Helaire will probably only see about 5% ownership in the captain spot. The captain spot's going to be primarily overwhelmed by the 3 guys that we mentioned, right? Patrick Mahomes, Jared Goff, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. It creates a little bit of a leverage point by playing a guy like Gibson there or David Montgomery, but it's going to be tough to see either one of those guys get up to the point that we need them to hit to get off of the Patrick Mahomes, the Jared Goff, and the Amon-Ra St. Brown. So it could have happened, absolutely. And Dave Montgomery is going to be a guy. I hate Dave Montgomery with a passion, but he is going to be a guy that I play in the captain spot tonight, probably in about 10 to 15% of my lineups, just to be able to leverage, because we saw what happened with Williams last year in terms of the touchdowns, right? If Dave Montgomery comes away with 15 carries for 30 yards and 3 touchdowns, that's a massive win, because that all of a sudden takes away from Jared Goff, right? Jared Goff isn't going to put that up. Amon-Ra St. Brown is now out. So I'm going to play a lot of the Chiefs guys in hopes that maybe the Lions end up going up big on them, and the Chiefs have to play catch up towards the fourth quarter, and Dave Montgomery comes away with 3 touchdowns. That's also in the realm of possibilities. But it's tough for me to get away from one of these guys when you have like a Bengals matchup, and you could have Joe Mixon in the captain, you could have Joe Burrow in the captain, you could have Jamar Chase or Higgins all in the captain spot on just one side. This game, it's pretty much consolidated to just 3 players.
Yeah, I'm excited for the game, man. I have just a couple questions for you, just about just kind of about the teams in general, not really even about tonight's game, but just real quick, is there a Chiefs wide receiver you're betting on?
Yeah, I think that Sky Moore is going to do well this game. I think that we need to keep an eye on MVS. MVS is probably going to end up running the most routes of anybody on this team this season, especially if Travis Kelce ends up being out for more than 1 week. MVS runs the same routes. He's always out there, and we know that Detroit can give up some big plays. We saw it all year last year, and although that defense is improved, there's still a possibility that he comes away with a couple of touchdowns on this one. So a couple touchdowns is great, but like if you're getting those 2 touchdowns for a total of 40 yards, 2 catches, 2 touchdowns, that's not going to win you in the captain, right? So you don't want to bet too heavily on them, but you can always include them in your lineup.
Cool. I appreciate that. And then with the Lions, how quickly do you think Sam Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs, both of these rookies, are going to be heavy contributors to this offense this season?
So I actually have a lineup that I already built with both those guys in there. I think that they could both hit this week, and at their pricing, they're dirt cheap to where they could end up finishing. I think that they're both going to have major impacts throughout the year. What I find interesting is the Lions don't have a deep threat, right? And they said not all wide receivers, not only wide receivers have to have, yet up until Jameson Williams, right? But not all, he said, what is it? Not only wide receivers have to run deep routes or something on those lines, which could insist that either Sam Laporta is going to be running the deep routes, or maybe they end up motioning Jamar Gibbs to the outside in running back situations, and all of a sudden we're looking at Jamar Gibbs being that dude that runs the deep routes up against linebackers, right? Like if they end up taking the, so I think that there's a shot there for it to happen immediately in week 1. I think that the Chiefs won't see it coming, and what better way to roll out Jamar Gibbs as a deep threat than other than beating the Chiefs in week 1, on a deep throw to end the game. But no, I do think that there is a immediate impact from those guys, and I would definitely set lineups because I don't think there's too many people that are willing to put both Jahmyr Gibbs, Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta in that lineup to start week 1 for DFS.
No, definitely. I mean, it's a risky move, but I think it could pay off. One of the reasons I had been touting Sam Laporta all offseason is because of the Jameson Williams suspension and the fact he's going to be thrown to the Wolves immediately, and he's going to be asked to do a lot. I mean, I'm excited to see what he can do with it. And hopefully, you can take some pressure off of Amon-Ra St. Brown over the middle, and it all really works smoothly. I do see a comment here in the chat. Rubio says that the Chiefs general manager said that he would not bet on Kelsey not playing and that the old man will be out there. So we'll see. I can't fact check that as I'm live, but I'm gonna trust Rubio there. I'm assuming that Travis Kelce is going to be on enough Toradol to kill an elephant.
I'm not going to be playing him though, to be honest. Like, not for DFS. I think he's the second most expensive player on the slate. Yeah, he's sitting over there at $12K, which is $100 less than Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, so I mean, like, that's just not a smart play, in my opinion, especially once all the rookies start getting their bets in for DFS, the people that are just kicking it off.
Cool. Oh, and it was on Good Morning Football, so we'll see. So that means, maybe those who already submitted their Noah Gray lineups, they might be eliminated. Let's go ahead and get your take on who wins the game. Then I'm going to let you plug and get you guys out of here. Who's winning tonight's game? What's the score? And who is today's MVP?
God. All right. I'm going to go with Jared Goff is the game MVP. All right. Okay. We're going to see Amon-Ra St. Brown likely covered by L'Jarius Sneed, which makes me a little bit nervous because he was very good in coverage last year. I think that Josh Reynolds could be heavily involved facing the left corner. He left corner last year. I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, but he gave up a ton of big plays last season and a lot of volume, which was a bigger aspect when he did play. I think that Jared Goff still uses Amon-Ra St. Brown, of course, still gets, Josh Reynolds involved, gets Sam Laporta involved, gets Jahmyr Gibbs involved, and essentially spreads the ball around to all these guys. Meanwhile, I think that he ends up winning the game on, let's say by 3, but the game-winning play will actually be a touchdown by Jared Goff to, let's say Jahmyr Gibbs, just have fun with it, and say the score is going to be 34-31.
Wow, fun one. I like that a lot. I think that's a great score. I'm going to go a little bit hotter. I'm going to say the Lions win by 17.
What?
Yeah, I'm going to say 37-20. I don't know how it gets there. 37-20. I don't know. And then I'm going to go also Jared Goff, this game's MVP. Before you plug, I did see in the comments here, it is our friend Jamie's birthday. Happy birthday, Jamie.
Dude, happy birthday, man. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
I love Jamie.
Yeah, I know. Jamie, thank you so much for tuning in all the time. You're great. You're great. Always love seeing you. And I'm glad that today is your birthday. You get some football. You get the Jason Chase Wake and Take special. It's a good day for you. Chase, give us your plugs.
Oh, you guys can find me over there at FF_intervention on Twitter. I'm constantly tweeting DFS takes, season-long takes as well. Some hot takes, nothing too hot, though, nothing too spicy. I don't like to just do that for attention. So everything that I'm tweeting out there is something I believe in and something significant that could affect your fantasy lineups coming out. So go check me out over there on at FF_intervention on Twitter. And then tomorrow night, tomorrow night on the Road to Underworld, Player Profiler YouTube channel. The DFS show with Bo McBriar is going to be my guest tomorrow night. It'll be at 7 o'clock Eastern time. Once again, that's on the Player Profiler YouTube channel. You guys are already here. I see y'all in the chat. Big shout out to you guys. Make sure y'all join and bring your pens and pencils, right? Bring your notepads. Let's come take some notes. I do all of my DFS stuff by hand. I'm not even kidding you. All of my DFS notes that I take are all by hand. Bring your pens and pencils. Don't be ashamed. Come join me, and then let's build some rosters together. We're going to build about 3 of them total.
Chase has officially established himself as the Charlie from Always Sunny of the Player Profiler brand, with that writing down everything like a madman.
Everything.
It's good though.
Like I have all sorts of strategies in here. I have like best ball strategies, everything. Like I have, I took this guy in this round. Make sure I don't do that again. Or like, good job, you got this guy in this round. I write myself like little pep notes, like I'm not even kidding you. Like I literally just have notes on notes on notes.
So many legal notepads at Chase Vernon's house.
I had to throw them all out. Like I went back and I found my ones from 2018, right? That were all my DFS stuff. Like Jamie can actually testify, right? Like I used to do these solo shows. They were hour-long solo shows, and I had 3 to 5 a week that I did. I think it was 3 because I did one for Monday Night Football, one for Thursday Night Football, DFS, the regular show, and then a Dynasty show. And every one of my notes was all handwritten from start to finish. All of my shows, I literally had a notepad stack about this big that I just threw out from 2018. It's pretty crazy.
Jesus, that's awesome. That is awesome. And that's why we tune in, because we know that you have great information and you work hard on this stuff. Make sure you tune into the Big Tilt tomorrow night. Make sure you tune into Wake and Take tomorrow morning on this very YouTube channel, the Player Profiler Twitter and Facebook and Instagram as well. Thank you all for watching. This was Wake and Take. I was Jason. That was Chase. You guys were a fantastic audience. Have a good Thursday and a good rest of your week. Peace.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.